Hey guys, this is Sonny Whitehorse. I'm here today to show y'all how I made some sun shades for my transmitter on my Phantom. I know that there are a lot of them out there that you can purchase, and they normally sell for anywhere from $30 to $40. If you are like me and you're retired and you have some time on your hands, you may just want to make you some. First ones that I made were relatively easy to make. I actually made them out of shoe boxes, and these are the two that I made out of shoe boxes right here. I have a Nexus 7 that I use as my monitor, and it has a fairly bright screen on it, but as you know, just about any of these screens out in bright sunlight, it's going to be hard to read them. Sunlight will really affect clarity of these things. So the first one of these that I made was actually this one, and it's out of a shoe box. And I just took a shoe box, and it just happened to be about the perfect size. Worked fairly well. And so then I said, well, you know, I've got some of this fake carbon fiber laying around here, a lot of this stuff. And I said, I think I'll make me another one a little bit lighter than this one and just make it out of the carbon fiber. So I made this one out of carbon fiber. And this is the one I actually ended up using most of the time because it's a little bit lighter than this one. As you can see, it fits into your, I've got a mount that I put on my transmitter here. And this is a square jellyfish tablet tripod mount that I put on it for my Nexus. Of course, you can use it, and on a cloudy day you may not even need a shade. And of course, this is a good mount. I bought the jellyfish mount here, and also the little aluminum here is a CNC FPV LCD monitor mount bracket, and you can pick up both of these on eBay, and probably a combination of both of them. I paid about $17–18 for this jellyfish mount, and these CNC mounts, they run anywhere from $9 to $18 depending on who you want to buy it from. Those mounts work fine for my Nexus 7. Just put it in there, and there it is in the mount, and that works real well. That's that. And this worked real well, but then I decided, well, maybe I can make one that's a little bit more polished looking, that looks a little bit better with this setup. I've got some of these ideas from what I'd seen online, so they're not totally my ideas. But I think in the way that I made it, that it is totally mine. I made these so that they lay down flat. You can take these and they close by velcro, and you can take the velcro off so they lay down flat. And this way, if you want to transport them, it's very easy because they lay down flat. You can put them into your box or your Phantom and tote them around that way. Now I made these out of basically 3 different materials. The first one I made, I actually went in to Lowe's and bought me a plastic sign. This was just a handicap sign, and it's made out of real thin plastic. This plastic is about 3/16 thick, which is relatively thin. Yeah, I used that, and I went to one of the local hobby craft stores, and I picked up these 2 products. One of them is a thin foam with adhesive backing on it, so you can peel the backing off and it sticks. And then I picked me up some felt. This is felt with the same thing. It's got a sticky back, so it will stick. So I picked up those 2 products. Both of them sell for around $1 a sheet. And it takes, to make one of these, it takes about 2 sheets of the foam and 2 sheets of the felt. You'll have some excess left over, but it's not quite enough in one sheet to make this hole to cover this particular area. Now, of course, I made these basically for the Nexus 7 mine. But actually this one, you see the cutout right here, and the same thing over here, the cutout. That's so you could put a smaller monitor in it, and also with the cutout, it gives a little bit of, it makes sure that your Nexus 7 is planted well into this shade. So the first one I made, which is this one. And this one's a little pliable, but that's not bad. And like I say, you take it and you fold it together like this. I've got Velcro catches right there, and there goes your screen. And the way that you mount it is, take this one out, is go ahead and put your tablet inside it, and as you see, that groove right there, so you can, when I clamp this in, to clamp against my tablet and the shade. And then you just take your shade and open it up and snap it in place. And so there you go right there. And if you notice, I've got these at an angle. And that's because when you put it up here, normally in the position where you you look at your monitor, you don't really, you're looking, you know, your vision is a cone shape is your vision. So what I'm trying to do was design these so that the only thing it showed was not necessarily the framing around my tablet, but just the screen itself. And I know it'll be rather hard to see this on that, but what it does, it gives you, you're just seeing the screen, and by doing that also it helps shade it off. It keeps some of the light from coming in. And the felt works real well. It seems to work a little better than these that have a little sheen to them, a little shine. And the felt just seems to absorb a little light, quite as much glare with this one. And plus it cone shaped in, so that also helps. So that was what I made out of that. And then I says, well, let me make one that's out of different material just to try it and see. This was my last one I made. And I actually made this out of plexiglass. And this is 5/16 plexiglass. I had some laying around the shop and it had a lot of scratches on it. So I made it the same way that I made the first one, except I used plexiglass instead of this sign material. And what I came up with was one that was a little more rigid, but it goes together the exact same way. Got velcro that holds it together, so you can fold it out for traveling. But it holds its shape a little bit better than this one. But it's a little bit heavier. These come out, I think I weighed this one, this was about 225 grams, and that was maybe 180 grams. And these are much lighter than that. You know, I'm not that concerned about weight on these. I've got a strap that goes around my neck, and I can support that much weight with very little effort. So that wasn't a big issue with me. So, I've shown you what materials you need to make it. There is a little bit of a technique involved in making these if you decide you want to make you a set. And first of all, you want to get your, whether you use the sign or whether you use the plexiglass or whatever material you use. You know, you don't have to use this. I even started to make it out of real thin plywood, see what that would be like. But decided not to because the plywood did not seem to want to stick too well. This material did not want to stick too well to the plywood, but it sticks very good to plastic. So that's what I ended up using. I ended up using plastic material because this adhesive backing just sticks better to this type of material. In making these, there are things you have to consider. First of all, I've got velcro that I use to hold it together. I notched out my rubber, I notched it out so I could and I've got my felt laying right there. I think you can see that. It looks a little darker. So you can see that. And over here what I did, I made on these an important material that I'm using also. Let me point that out. I went at Lowe's also and picked up some white duct tape. I know, you know, no good project can be without a little bit of duct tape. So I use this duct tape for hinges, and also on the plexiglass. I did not need to use it on the sign because the sign's white. So the edge of it, when it shows up, it looks white. The edge on this one looks white. So we'll give you a good look at this edge. See what it looks like. So see, you really don't have any. It looks like all of it goes together. So it looks nice, I think. But I knew with the plexiglass that plexiglass edge may look a little weird with the glass looking, and you could see that it was 3 different materials. So rather than having that plywood look on the end of it, I went ahead and used this tape to around the edges of my plexiglass. And the first thing that you have to do is you have to make some pattern. So I just took my old cereal box and I cut me out the patterns. These are like 4 pieces. And okay, so the first thing I did, I got me some cereal box and just made me a cutout the sizes that I needed. Basically I took Okay, so I took my tablet, I determined about what size I needed for my tablet. And I left myself a little bit of breathing room because I knew these things were going to turn over on them. They were going to be at an angle, so I didn't want to get this too small, then my tablet wouldn't fit in it. So I made it a little bit larger than my tablet. Put these pieces together first of all. I used just masking tape to tape them together and formed the size that I wanted. So I just formed all this up, and I had the tape to hold it together so I could see exactly what size it was, and everything worked out okay. So I cut it to get just the size that I needed. Once I had that, then I came in and I had a pattern that I could cut all my plexiglass out with. You need a plexiglass cutting tool. You can pick these up at Lowe's too. And it's good to have a sharp one because these will go dull with time, but when they're sharp, they do a good job of cutting not only the plexiglass, but also this material right here cuts very easily with one of these cutters. So that's what you use to cut it out with. So once you cut your pattern out with your plexiglass, there's a certain technique that you need to do. First of all, you have to get your plastic to fit properly the first time. I mean, before you put any of your other surface material on it. So before you put your foam on it or your felt, you want to make your pattern, your plastic or your plexiglass, you want to put it together first. And if you notice, that operates as a hinge. And you have to realize that it does have some thickness to it, especially once you get the 3 plies together. So, and I'll show you this. This is the edge on that to give you some idea how thick this one is. So that gives you some idea how thick it is. So you've got some thickness to it. So you've got to consider that you just can't bend something like that and expect something not to give. So the first thing you do is you take your plexiglass or plastic, either one, and I use masking tape. I take the masking tape and I pull this tightly together. And then I take my masking tape and I put it on it to hold it together. Then I flip it over this size. Okay, now I know that one side of my hinge is going to fold this way. So I don't have to worry about my duct tape in that direction because it'll fold that direction. So you cut off the appropriate length of your, and you put it on here like so. Okay, now I turn it back over and I pull off my masking tape. Now I know that this has got to operate as a hinge. So what I want to do is going to have to hinge and to make sure that this is on. I've got me a little roller here. And it's nice, you've got to roll it. Make sure that you stuck. And one thing that I forgot, this is important. Of course this is a demo, so it's not that important. But it's good to have some solvent around. Well, watch your solvent too, because some solvents will affect your plexiglass and your plastic. This is denatured alcohol, which is a low-grade solvent, but it works well on this. It cleans the surface off very well, so this tape will stick. It sticks pretty well even before you do that, but it gets all the contaminants out of it and it gives it a nice surface. So use some distilled alcohol to clean the surface off to prep it before you put any of this on. I'm talking about the felt, the rubber, anything. Use your denatured alcohol to clean your surface off. But anyway, I have that hinge that way. Now what I have to do is I have to make sure that when I put this on, that the other side is not tight, because the other side is going to have to give. So the way that I did it is I take it and you can say on this one, fold it over and do one side like so. Move it back up and keep it at an angle, the angle that it's going to be at. This one's a little more than 90. So I pull this down, and I've got some slack right here. And I take that slack, and just to make it go in the direction I want to, I'll take it like I'm taking my fingernail and I'm pressing it in a little bit so that it ends up inside here. So now I've got a hinge. It's a one-way hinge. It doesn't go but one way. It won't go that way, better to go that way. So that's how I do that. And you want to do that first. Get all that hinging on there. And the other thing I was telling you about was just for an edge on this plexiglass. Because plexiglass itself has got kind of a rough edge. I sand this a little bit, but just to get any burrs or roughness out of it. But what I did on this particular one, I would line up. I'd want maybe a quarter to an eighth of an inch to cover that corner. I wouldn't want any more than I have to have because I want as much plastic surface as I can to get my felt and my rubber to stick against. It will stick on this tape, but it sticks just a little bit butt on this plastic, so I didn't want to put too much tape on there for this other material to have a tendency to come up. And then I would take it and cut this down a little bit to get some of this excess off. And also I can use this other tape at another place. So I would cut that off and take this and keep it on your edge and just mash it in place and get it in place. And then I would take my X-Acto and have some good sharp blades, because you will need it, especially when you cut this foam. You need to put a new blade in each time, because it takes a sharp blade to cut through that and get a clean edge on it. You don't want a ragged edge. But I take this on the to even out these sides, and you don't worry about cutting into your plexiglass a little bit, because you're not going to cut into it that much. That's usually about all. And I apply very little pressure. It doesn't take much. If you've got a sharp blade, it doesn't take much to cut through this duct tape. But you trim your excess off. And actually I do these, and see, there's only certain edges that are going to be exposed. Now, you don't have to do this to every edge. Like on this particular piece here, that piece, which is this one, I only needed to cover 3 edges on it. This edge, and this edge. On this piece right here, I really didn't have to do but one edge. I had to do this top edge because that'll show. And then on my base, I needed to do 3 edges. This, and of course my cutout. So I had to do all of those. So they're the ones I had to do. But once I cut that, then I just peel this off, get that out of the way. Now I've got my edge covered. And once I get all my edge covering and get all this off, then I come in, and at this point, this is where I want to lay down my velcro. And I used up, this took exactly, these 2 that I did took exactly one, I think they came in 18-inch lengths set of velcro. This is some old one that I had around, so I just pull it off. I wouldn't use this because it's probably 1,000,000 years old. But it's the same size, and what you do is go ahead and put this in place. And I put the fuzzy side on this, and I put the plastic side with the little grip locks in it. I put that on this hinge. And so you go ahead and do that, and you make your hinge. Now when you're making your hinge, if you notice on this hinge that I've got a good little leeway right there, because when I put this material together, you've got a lot of thickness there, and so to get it to lay down properly, and I had to do this several times to get it right. And when I'm making these, that's no big deal because I've got expendable material here. If I mess it up, it's not much to tear it off and redo it again. So that's one thing good about building something, and the material you're using does not cost that much. If you mess up, just redo it. So you have to do that. Now, if you notice on this one, but this particular one, I don't have nearly as much leeway as I do on this one for a couple of reasons. This one I wanted stiff. I just did this first time, and it's just duct tape with the velcro on it. That's all it is. So it has no stiffness to it. So I decided when I made these, I'd take a little bit of this plastic material that I used for the first one, the thin plastic, and I would use it in here to make me a more rigid flap. So this one has got the plastic in it, so it's more rigid. So it's more critical here because this will not bend like the Velcro and the duct tape will. So I had to make sure that I had the proper clearance on this one. But once you get that all together and you take your plastic pieces and form them up, everything fits right, then you take your foam rubber and whatever else you have, your foam rubber and your felt, and you I actually used this surface to do some cuttings on. This one's actually got some score marks in it where I've done some cutting. And even if you're going to use material, it really doesn't matter because you're covering up this material. As long as you don't cut through it and structurally compromise it, you're okay. But once you have that, then you're ready for your, and I put my rubber on first. So this being pliable, it will bend, so you don't have to worry about the it bending. It is pliable enough to bend. So you put this material on first. I did anyway. And then you cut this out using a hard surface under you. This way you get a nice clean cut by following your plastic. You're using your plastic as a straight edge to cut this material. And like I say, you want to make sure that you've got a sharp X-Acto blade, because if you don't, you can grab this rubber. It may grab this rubber and it will not be a nice clean cut. But I've got it on there, and as you see, it will bend. It's got some resistance to it, a little resistance, so it wants to go back straight. But it will bend. The rubber foam will bend. And when you put your felt on it, when you put your felt on the other side, or this side, of course it hinges up this way. Don't worry about the bend. Just go ahead and put your felt right over that bend. And I always roll these again when I get all this stuff on it. I always roll it out. Try to just to get it to adhere as well as I can. And when you bend this, it will stay there. It will stay in place. So that's what you have that's what you have when you are through. And so see, it hinges. It works fine. But that's the secret in making these shades. And you can modify these shades depending. First of all, you want to modify them or make them. You want to make these shades to fit your particular mobile phone or tablet. So you make it whatever size you want to. But you may want to make them, I didn't on this particular one because I know if I need to, I can go back and I can make a few modifications to this, and it won't really affect much. But like if you have maybe some FPV glasses and you want to hook to a USB port or whatever, you can have a slot made so that you can do that. And you know, if you're real picky and you wanted to, you could actually put a little slot up here where your controls are, so you can cut it on and off. But I don't feel I'm gonna need to do that, so you could actually cut some slots up here for that. I would rather have the least amount of slots I can for a couple of reasons. Number one, anytime you cut a slot or anything, it does take some effort, and it does affect it to a certain extent. Plus light gets through those little holes a little bit, so you'll pick up a little light in there. But other than that, would be okay. So that's the end one I picked up. And if you're wondering what this is, one sheet will not cover this completely. So I did this first, and then I had to take some extra pieces to do the side. It left a little seam, and it looked alright with the seams, but I decided I'd just put the little tape over that seam. So this is just some little trim tape, automotive trim tape. You can probably find this material in larger sheets. These were 9 by 12 sheets. Material in an 18 by 12. That would be the ideal size for this. Now if you're making a smaller sunshade for, say, a mobile phone, then you would not necessarily need this much material. So that's about it. So for what it's worth, that's my 2 cents. Thanks for watching.